Good morning and welcome to 6 a.m. and session 7 of What is a Raindrop Anyway? So if you remember or if you've been following along, we're talking about the first step in a raindrop, which is VitaFlex, which is the method we use on the feet first when administering a raindrop. And we've talked about the first few oils that we apply, the first one being Valor, and then oregano, thyme, and basil. And yes, it does smell a bit like an Italian eatery when you're doing a raindrop. So this morning I'm actually hoping to get through the rest of the oils in the order that you would VitaFlex them. And then our next session we'll talk about the next step in a raindrop. So, first up after basil would be wintergreen. And I've actually talked in depth about wintergreen in our But First Plants series. So if you want a lot of information about wintergreen, I recommend going back and catching that one. It was the Panaway video when I talked about wintergreen, because wintergreen is a constituent of the blend Panaway. All right, so we'll just kind of hit on wintergreen a bit this morning. Let me get my notes a little closer so I don't have to keep going back and forth quite so much. But if you'll notice, the cap on wintergreen is a child-proof cap, kind of like this one here. See, it's got a child-proof. And the reason wintergreen has a child-proof cap is because, quite frankly, a lot of candies are flavored with wintergreen, and we definitely don't want our children popping open a bottle and guzzling it all down, as that would be very uncomfortable. So, hence the child-proof cap. But wintergreen itself is a wonderful support to joints and the skeletal structure. Wintergreen is made up of more than 80% methyl salicylate. Ugh. That's a big word to try and say at 6 o'clock in the morning. Yes, I have had coffee, but still, methyl salicylate, which has been added to ointments and liniments for musculoskeletal problems for years and years and years. And wintergreen is a huge natural carrier of that methyl salicylate. My mother actually uses wintergreen daily on her knee and on her lower leg. She finds it to be a great help to her. All right, so wintergreen. And then after we remember the VitaFlex, let me see if I'll do it on this side so you can see. Remember, we start with the pad and then we go up to the tip and then you flip it over, and you just do that up the foot. You start at the heel and then you come all the way up to the top of the big toe. So, and each oil, you actually VitaFlex in each foot 3 times. All right, so after we do wintergreen, then we would go on to marjoram. Marjoram was actually known as the herb of happiness to the Romans and the joy of the mountains to the Greeks, which I thought was pretty interesting. And it was believed to increase longevity. So it was a very well-loved herb in the ancient world. It was listed in both in Discordias de Materia Medica and Hildegard's Medicine. So those 2 of those 3 ancient texts, medical herbal texts that we've talked about previously. But it is very soothing to the muscles and the nerves, and it is known as a relaxant. So in fact, when I like to combine marjoram vitality and copaiba vitality in a capsule when my lower back is bothering me, which, praise the Lord, isn't nearly as often as once it was. But, or if we've been doing a lot of physical activity out in the yard and, those muscles are just screaming, marjoram and copaiba for me is an awesome combination to keep those muscles from screaming. All right, so after we do marjoram, we would then move on to cypress. And cypress is a beautiful wood. In fact, I did an entire video on cypress as part of our Oils of the Bible study. So if you want to go back and catch a refresher with a lot of information about cypress and what the Bible has to say about cypress, I recommend you go back and catch that one. And if you need me to tag you, just let me know in the video and I'll help you find it. In the comments. Let me know in the comments and I'll help you find the cypress video. There we go. Anyway, so cypress wood is actually noted for its durability and was used for shipbuilding and building sarcophagi. And it was actually used to build the original doors of St. Peter's Basilica, which stood for like 1,000 years or something. So incredibly durable wood. But the oil, cypress oil, actually helps improve circulation. It discourages fluid retention. And it is incredibly supportive to the liver. And remember, our liver is our body's cleansing organ, so it cleanses out all the things that aren't supposed to be there. So we definitely want to make sure those livers are very well supported because we don't want any junk that's not supposed to be there inside of us. But the interesting part about cypress, aside from all those beautiful qualities, is the fragrant influence. So breathing in cypress can help ease feelings of loss. It can promote feelings of security and grounding. It helps heal emotional trauma. It calms and soothes anger and helps, just that feeling of life flowing better. So cypress is a really beautiful oil. And it's very high in monoterpenes and may assist in restoring proper cellular programming. So remember, we've talked about it previously, I think especially in the Bible study, about how our DNA is just made to store information, and our emotions are information. And if we don't deal with them, they stick around, and they'll actually get embedded in the DNA. And so you definitely don't want to leave it there to pass it along to future generations. So some of these plants that God has created can actually help us cleanse some of that information that doesn't need to be there out, which I thought was really cool. And then the last oil that you would Vitaflex into the foot is actually peppermint. And I have covered peppermint extensively in our previous series, but first plants. So again, if you need me to tag you in that peppermint video, let me know. And I go into a lot of the depth of the history of peppermint and all the things. But peppermint, of course, has been used for centuries to soothe the digestion. That's, like I said, that's a big thing about peppermint. And of course, peppermint is very supportive to both the liver and the respiratory systems. And the fragrant influence of peppermint is actually purifying and stimulating to the conscious mind. So, yeah, peppermint helps make you peppy, or at least it helps make me peppy. And it can help with concentration and mental retention. It's another good reason I like to use peppermint when I'm making that long drive down south. But the interesting part that I did not realize is peppermint is actually a synergistic oil that supports and improves the beneficial actions of other oils that have been used in conjunction. So that is one of the reasons we use peppermint last. Another reason is, of course, a lot of the oils we've talked about previously are very warming to the skin, and peppermint's cooling. So after you've done all these nice warming oils and your muscles are good and relaxed, and that's when you do that little cool at the end so the heat doesn't just keep building and building. All right, so, kept it right at about 10 minutes. These are the order of the oils you would use in the VitaFlex on the feet, which is where we would start on a raindrop. Next session, so on Thursday, we'll go ahead and talk about the next step in a raindrop, which would be moving from the feet up to the back. And how we would apply those oils and get them in. I'm not going to go into super depth on every step of a raindrop because it's kind of complicated to explain. It's a lot easier to see a demonstration. But, and I think we'll add in maybe 1 or 2 more oils, but the majority of them we have covered. And it's just the order changes just a little bit when you switch from the feet to the back. And we will discuss all of that in detail on Thursday in our next session. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. And I will see you guys on Thursday. Bye.